Hey crafty cuties, welcome back to another video. I had a request to show how I make my journal covers, kind of a new way that I've been doing it so that they end up feeling really plush. And this could not be any easier. So today I'm just going to show you how to make the journal cover. I haven't changed how I sew in these signatures. So let's get started. The supplies are very basic. This is probably one of the easier ways to make a fabric journal cover. So I always like to reuse boxes. So I have a Cheez-It box here. It just ends up being the perfect size. And it's gonna end up being like a semi-hard cover. It's not gonna be like a hard book, but perfect for journal. So I have this already cut open like so. And then I have some batting here. You can get this at the fabric store, or I'll have some links below if you're interested. And then I just have a piece of a vintage sheet, which we will use for the final fabric on our journal. And I am going to start using a stick glue, a stick glue, that's not what you say. And I am going to use this just to hold down the batting on the cover. And so I'm just going to not be super specific about where the glue is, but you know, cover majority of the cover here. We're just going to do it nice and quick. Okay, like that. Now I have my batting cut out to be just about the same size as the cover. I don't actually like to wrap this around the edges because for me, I feel like it ends up being a little too bulky around the corners of it. So we'll just try to get this set up. And I had this cut out almost exact, so it might not come to like one of the edges very perfectly, but that's going to be totally fine. And then what I'm going to do from here is take my scissors, and since I have the glue holding it in place really well now, I am going to trim off any excess or most of the excess. And it's okay if the batting is showing just a teeny bit on the edges. That's totally fine. You just want to make sure not to have too much. So we'll just trim this off. And if you notice, I kept the inside, or I used the blank part, the craft for the inside. And I covered up the image on the front with the batting because since the batting's thick enough, you won't actually see through any of that image. But if I was covering it with just a regular fabric and no batting, it would be see-through. And so I would rather have the craft for the inside, and then I just have a bit more wiggle room with how I want to cover the inside, even if I end up using like a light fabric. So that was the only reason there. Now we're going to take this to the sewing machine, and we are just going to do a straight stitch all the way around the edges. Now, if you don't have a sewing machine, don't panic. You can I would use a wet glue, and I would probably use Tombow Mono Aqua Glue, but if you like a certain fabric glue or something, you can use that. And I would use a generous amount instead of the glue stick that I used, and you can just go with glue. You are going to be just fine. And I would just let this dry flat with maybe some heavy books on it. But we're going to head over to the sewing machine, so let's go. I don't really need to show too much of this, but I thought I would just show you and tell you while I'm getting started that I am just using a regular needle on this, and I'm going to do a straight stitch, and I'm going to move up the length to 4.0, and I'm just going to go all the way around. Now that we have this all the way sewn on, I'm going to take my fabric of choice and place this where I want it. Since this is a sheet, it's a little like ruched, I guess, right here in the center, but I think it's going to be fine once it wraps around. I do. Okay, so I'm just going to set that up where I want it on the journal cover. Now, I'm not going to glue this down because part of the reason why I started this new way of adding fabric was I didn't like when the fabric would bubble up a little bit, either because there was wrinkles or just because of the glue. So that's why now I am doing it this way. And we're just going to make sure you want to have probably about an inch extra fabric around all sides. You can see maybe not quite as much down here, but I'm not too concerned about having it perfect. And we are going to make sure to cut at an angle on all four corners and just try to make sure this doesn't move, because you want to keep it placed exactly where you want it. But I'm just gonna trim at an angle on all four corners, because we are going to wrap the remaining material around the edges, and I will actually glue on these sides. This is just what has worked for me. And so I'm just gonna start by adding a little bit of glue really all the way around. I can add more if I need, but we'll just start here. And I'm just gonna use my finger just to kind of rub that in. And then you wanna tightly wrap this around. And this is really just holding it in place so that when we take it to the sewing machine, it will sew both sides, because it just gives it a really nice finished look when you do have that wrapped around the edge. And I like to go ahead and do both sides first, or the shorter sides, I should say. And again, I might have cut this just almost, I should have had a little extra, but it's still going to be just fine. There's still enough to wrap around. So I'm just going to continue wrapping this all the way around on all four sides, and then we're going to head back over to the sewing machine. Now again, if you didn't want to use a sewing machine, I would probably go ahead and add a little bit of glue to the front, even though I just said I'm trying to avoid using glue, but if you don't have a sewing machine, you can make it work. And I would just add a little bit of glue like I am around the edges on the inside. I would do it on the outside as well. But then this part, I would make sure to add a really good amount of glue, which I'm gonna go ahead and do because it's not wanting to attach. And wrapping this around is really gonna secure that onto the journal cover. I have these glued, and remember, I'm not using an excess amount of glue since I'm going to take this to the sewing machine, but now would also be a great time if you wanted to add some closures or any kind of trim. I'm gonna just, again, add a tiny bit of glue just to hold this in place like this. And if you are also not sewing, you can make sure that these are going to stick down by adding paper over the top, which I'll do that part with you in just a moment, but these are just going to be placeholders. So we're going to go take it to the sewing machine now, and I am just going to sew all the way around the border. So we have the outer edge sewn on now, or glued on if that's what you chose to do. And now what we are going to do is finish off. I'm going to go ahead and fold this real quick. And when you are gluing on or sewing on all of this flat, it's going to make it nice and extra tight when you go ahead and finally fold these up like so, which I just love. It looks just so nice and fresh, and I'm really glad that I changed up my normal routine for making covers. So let's see, I could make either one of these the front, because this, I sort of like this being the front, so we're going to do that. And so this will be the top, and I'm going to go ahead and just do normally what I would do for my covers. I am going to add one of these little charm rings. This is not the Tim Holtz brand. I get these ones on Amazon, so I'll have a link below. It's like a generic brand, and I'm just going to guess where the center is. We'll call it right there. Just poke a little hole. You'll want to do this before you cover the inside, because That way you can cover up the ends. This all does not work very well. I'm hoping that will work. And then I'm just going to push these through here. I think it'll work. There we go. Yep, that looks center enough for me. My lighting got weird. I took a break real quick because I had a friend come over after I had sewn this, and now the lighting's all different. So I apologize, but that's the life of a YouTuber. Just kidding. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead. I already have some scrapbook paper cut down to size just to cover the inside and just finish it off so you can actually see what a full finished cover looks like. So I'm just gonna add glue. Now a lot of times I like to add pockets or different little interactive elements to my front pocket, or sorry, to my inside cover. What am I even saying? But when I'm not too sure how I want to decorate it, I will just add a blank scrapbook paper, something pretty, because I can always put something over top this, but sometimes I'm just in the mood to like get it to a state where it looks finished. So this is what I do. Okay, I'm gonna add glue to my centerpiece. Again, this is just all to cover up the ugly cardboard, so it goes from geek to chic. Okay. I'm never too concerned that you can see a little bit of that craft on the inside. I'll have to push that down better. And let's just glue this last one on, and then I think we're finished. Now you can always add metal corners, like book corners if you want. I'm not going to for this one because I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with this one. I'll probably add pages at some point and put it in my shop or have it available. This one's going to be real pretty. I love this vintage sheet. In fact, you know, I took this vintage sheet and I sewed some covers for my outdoor bench. It was just a regular bench and I needed like a little makeover for my porch, but I didn't want to spend any money. So I actually used this right here. I'll pop up a picture here. So I typically would let this dry flat with some heavy books on it, but of course I'm going to show you what the final journal looks like. And I do wish you could feel it because that's the best part. Like it's just, it feels like, you know, a hardcover journal, but it feels nice in the hands. It feels plush. And you can get different types of batting, so you could probably get something even a little more fluffier than this. But I feel like the one that I have is just kind of an in-between. I got little fuzzes on here. And I feel like it is just the perfect thing for a journal cover. So I hope this was helpful, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.